The mop bucket wheels squeaked against the polished concrete floor as Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez watched the Force Reconnaissance team sprint past her workstation in full tactical gear, their boots thundering toward the advanced combat training center where she hadn't been allowed to set foot in 3 years. Her hands, raw from industrial cleaning chemicals and endless scrubbing, paused their methodical work on the barracks floor as Master Sergeant Jake Morrison disappeared through the reinforced doors of a facility that had once been as familiar to her as breathing underwater in full combat gear. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 28 years old, decorated Navy SEAL with 4 years of elite special operations service, and the woman they had relegated to mopping barracks floors while lesser trained Marines struggled with amphibious assault scenarios she could execute. Blindfolded in hostile waters, she understood the tactical complexities of underwater infiltration better than her own heartbeat. Yet here she stood with a mop in her hands, watching through grimy windows as Force Recon practiced maneuvers she had perfected in some of the most dangerous waters on Earth. The irony wasn't lost on her that she spent her days cleaning the very quarters that housed Marines training for missions she had once led with legendary precision. Every morning, she scrubbed the floors where warriors prepared for combat operations, while her own expertise lay buried beneath 3 years of institutional memory that preferred convenient lies over inconvenient truths. The SEAL trident she had once worn with pride now sat locked in a storage unit off base, collecting dust alongside equipment that could make the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure in maritime operations. The morning sun cast long shadows across the sprawling complex of Marine Corps' Base Camp Pendleton as Sarah Martinez began her daily routine of institutional invisibility. Building 452 stretched before her like a monument to wasted potential, its 3 floors of personnel quarters requiring the kind of meticulous attention to detail that had once been applied to planning covert operations in enemy territory. The same methodical precision that had made her invaluable to Navy Special Warfare Command now served to ensure that Marine barracks maintained the spotless condition required by military standards that valued appearance over capability. Sarah pushed her cleaning cart through corridors that echoed with the sounds of Marines preparing for training exercises she could have designed and executed with superior effectiveness. The wheels of her equipment squeaked rhythmically against the floor, creating a soundtrack of diminished circumstances that followed her through hallways where her expertise should have commanded respect rather than indifference. Each room she entered told the story of warriors preparing for challenges that paled in comparison to the operations she had successfully completed during her years as a Navy SEAL. The cleaning supplies she carried represented the full extent of her authorized equipment, a dramatic reduction from the sophisticated gear that had once made her one of the most effective special operations personnel in maritime environments. Her current arsenal consisted of industrial-strength floor cleaner, disinfectant wipes, and vacuum attachments that could reach the corners where dust accumulated like the institutional neglect that had transformed her from elite warrior to anonymous support staff. Master Sergeant Mike Rodriguez supervised the facilities management department with the kind of professional competence that recognized quality work regardless of the person performing it. Unlike Morrison and his Force Reconnaissance team, Rodriguez had worked alongside Sarah for 2 years and witnessed her approach to routine tasks with the same systematic thoroughness that characterized elite military operations. He had observed her identify maintenance issues that other personnel missed, solve logistical problems with tactical precision, and demonstrate an understanding of base operations that exceeded anyone else in facilities management. Rodriguez possessed enough combat experience from 3 tours in Iraq to recognize genuine competence when he encountered it, but military protocol prevented him from inquiring about the circumstances that had led to Sarah's current assignment. The red flag notation in her personnel file created a bureaucratic barrier that made direct questions inappropriate, even though his instincts told him that exceptional talent was being systematically wasted through administrative blindness. The daily routine never varied in its soul-crushing predictability. Sarah would arrive at Building 452 at 0530 hours, 15 minutes before the official duty day began, to inventory cleaning supplies and plan the most efficient approach to maintaining 3 floors of military quarters. Her systematic method reflected tactical planning principles that had once been applied to infiltrating enemy installations, but now served to ensure that Marine personnel returned from training to spotless living spaces. Each barracks room received the same methodical attention that Sarah had once devoted to reconnaissance missions in hostile territory. She checked every surface for contamination, ensured proper sanitization of common areas, and maintained equipment with the precision of someone whose life had once depended on the reliable performance of complex systems. The Marines who occupied these quarters had no idea that their living spaces were maintained by someone whose operational experience exceeded that of most personnel on the base. The Force Reconnaissance team that trained at the Advanced Combat Training Center represented the Marine Corps' elite amphibious assault specialists, but their capabilities fell short of the standards Sarah had achieved during her Navy SEAL service. She could observe their training schedules posted on bulletin boards throughout the base, mentally participating in exercises she wasn't permitted to attend while recognizing tactical approaches that could be improved through techniques she had mastered years earlier. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Morrison commanded Force Recon with the confidence of someone who had never faced the operational complexities that had defined Sarah's military career. His tactical credentials were solid, but limited to conventional amphibious operations rather than the specialized maritime infiltration techniques that separated elite special operations forces from merely competent military units. He possessed sufficient knowledge to train Marines in standard procedures, but lacked the advanced understanding that enabled successful completion of missions requiring unconventional approaches. Staff Sergeant Danny Costa served as Morrison's second-in-command, bringing competent leadership and technical knowledge to Force Recon training operations. Costa had completed 2 deployments with amphibious assault units, earning respectable performance evaluations and demonstrating the kind of tactical competence expected from Marine leadership. However, his experience remained limited to operations that followed established doctrine rather than the improvisational brilliance required for special operations success in unpredictable environments. Corporal Marcus Webb represented the newest generation of Marine Special Operations personnel, educated through advanced training programs and equipped with cutting-edge technology that previous generations could only have imagined. Webb's scores on standardized combat assessments placed him in the top 15% of active-duty Marines, but his practical experience remained confined to training exercises and simulated combat scenarios that couldn't replicate the psychological pressure and tactical complexity of real-world special operations. The culture within Force Reconnaissance reflected the broader military tendency to evaluate personnel based on current assignments rather than demonstrated capabilities under combat conditions. Sarah's relegation to facilities management had effectively erased her operational record from institutional memory, transforming her from decorated special operations veteran to invisible support staff in the minds of Marines who had never served alongside her during actual combat operations. The Advanced Combat Training Center operated as Camp Pendleton's premier facility for specialized military instruction, featuring state-of-the-art equipment and training, environments that simulated the challenges facing modern amphibious assault forces. Sarah had memorized every specification and capability of the facility during her initial assignment to the base, knowledge that remained unused while supposedly elite, Marines struggled with tactical problems she could have solved through techniques learned during actual combat deployments. Rodriguez maintained his supervision of facilities management with genuine concern for the personnel under his command, recognizing Sarah's exceptional performance despite her restriction to basic maintenance duties. He had watched her diagnose mechanical problems with surgical precision, identify security vulnerabilities that escaped the attention of trained specialists, and demonstrate an understanding of base operations that exceeded personnel with years of specialized training in facilities management. The contrast between Sarah's obvious competence and her menial assignment created cognitive dissonance that Rodriguez struggled to reconcile with military logic. Every interaction with Sarah revealed capabilities that seemed dramatically inconsistent with her current role, but the red flag notation in her personnel file prevented him from pursuing explanations that might clarify the disconnect between her apparent qualifications and actual duties. Specialist Lisa Chun handled communications equipment and administrative support for various training operations, giving her regular contact with Force Reconnaissance during their preparation for complex exercises. Chun had observed the difference between Sarah's systematic approach to routine tasks and the sometimes chaotic methods employed by Marines who treated their equipment carelessly because they assumed someone else would handle maintenance and repairs. The institutional memory of Camp Pendleton contained fragments of Sarah's story preserved through unofficial channels and whispered conversations between personnel who had served long enough to remember her initial arrival at the base. Senior non-commissioned officers recalled her assignment paperwork, which had included recommendations for advanced training, opportunities that never materialized due to the growing influence of administrative restrictions that followed her everywhere. Like bureaucratic shadows, Command Sergeant Major William Torres had served as the base's senior enlisted advisor for 5 years, making him one of the few people with sufficient institutional knowledge to understand the discrepancy between Sarah's current assignment and her apparent qualifications. Torres remembered Sarah's arrival and had quietly monitored her performance through informal observation, but military protocol required him to respect personnel decisions made by previous commanders unless presented with compelling evidence of administrative error. The bureaucratic machinery that governed military assignments operated through multiple layers of review and approval, creating a system where individual cases could disappear into procedural complexity that made reconsideration nearly impossible. Without extraordinary circumstances, Sarah's situation had been documented, processed, and archived according to regulations that prioritized institutional stability over individual justice or operational effectiveness. The training schedules that dominated Camp Pendleton's daily operations reflected institutional priorities that emphasize standardized instruction over individual expertise, creating an environment where Sarah's advanced capabilities remained irrelevant to current operational requirements. Force Reconnaissance followed predetermined curricula designed to produce adequate amphibious assault specialists rather than exceptional maritime operators, ensuring that Sarah's knowledge of advanced techniques remained unused despite their potential value. The equipment inventory at the Advanced Combat Training Center included some of the most sophisticated amphibious assault gear available to military units, systems that Sarah could have employed with devastating effectiveness if given the opportunity to demonstrate her capabilities. Instead, these instruments remained assigned to Marines whose technical competence was adequate but unremarkable, while the most skilled maritime operator on the base maintained their mechanisms through routine cleaning and inspection. Sarah's personal equipment remained secured in an off-base storage facility, cleaned and maintained to operational standards despite having no authorized opportunities for deployment. Her civilian storage unit contained diving gear, tactical equipment, and specialized weapons that represented months of salary and careful selection based on combat experience that most military personnel would never acquire through their entire Careers. The daily routines that governed life at Camp Pendleton created an environment where Sarah's extraordinary skills remained hidden behind mundane tasks and administrative limitations that made her invisible despite her obvious competence. She had become a ghost in plain sight, her reputation reduced to whispered speculation and half-remembered stories, while the institutional machinery continued operating as if exceptional talent and bureaucratic convenience were mutually exclusive considerations in personnel management. Every morning before the base awakened to training activities and administrative bustle, Sarah maintained her physical conditioning through exercise routines that kept her body prepared for the demands of special operations that she was no longer authorized to perform. Her workout regimen included swimming, running, and strength training that maintained the fitness standards required for Navy SEAL operations, ensuring that her physical readiness remained at combat levels despite having no official outlet for these capabilities. The psychological discipline required for special operations had been preserved through meditation and visualization exercises that Sarah practiced during her limited free time, understanding that maritime special operations required mental clarity and emotional control that had to be maintained through deliberate practice. These psychological skills had been honed through combat experience, but preserved through personal dedication that kept her mind as sharp as her physical conditioning. The technical knowledge that Sarah had acquired during her Navy SEAL service continued expanding through professional publications and online resources that covered developments in maritime special operations and amphibious warfare tactics. She absorbed information about new equipment, advanced techniques, and operational procedures developed by elite military units worldwide, maintaining expertise that exceeded the knowledge of most active duty special operations personnel despite her exclusion from official training programs. The fluorescent lights in Building 452 hummed with mechanical indifference as Sarah Martinez stripped beds and collected laundry from Marines who treated their quarters like temporary shelters rather than professional military housing. Each room told its own story of careless habits and casual disregard for the standards that had once defined her existence as a Navy SEAL, where attention to detail meant the difference between successful mission completion and catastrophic failure in hostile waters. Her hands moved through the monotonous tasks with practiced efficiency, while her mind remained focused on maintaining the tactical awareness that had kept her alive during operations most people would never hear about in official military histories. The routine nature of her work provided mental space for continuing the advanced training regimens that she conducted in complete secrecy, ensuring that her capabilities remained sharp despite having no authorized outlet for their application. The Marines in Force Reconnaissance had no understanding of the woman who cleaned their quarters each morning, seeing only the facilities management uniform and cleaning equipment rather than recognizing someone whose operational experience exceeded their collective knowledge of maritime special operations. Their casual conversations revealed training challenges and tactical problems that Sarah could have resolved through techniques learned during actual combat deployments in some of the most dangerous coastal regions on Earth. Rodriguez observed Sarah's work patterns with growing awareness that her systematic approach to routine tasks reflected military training that went far beyond basic enlisted education. The way she moved through buildings suggested tactical movement principles, while her attention to security details indicated someone who had been trained to think in terms of threats and vulnerabilities rather than simple cleanliness standards. His combat experience gave him enough insight to recognize behaviors that were inconsistent with standard facilities management training. The morning briefings that Rodriguez conducted with his facilities management team provided Sarah with comprehensive information about base operations, training schedules, and maintenance requirements that she absorbed with the kind of analytical thinking applied to intelligence gathering during special operations planning. Her questions about base security, emergency procedures, and equipment capabilities seemed natural within the context of her assigned duties, but revealed understanding that exceeded routine job requirements. Maria Santos worked base security during the night shift, giving her opportunities to observe Sarah's off-duty activities through the casual surveillance that security personnel maintained over base facilities after normal working hours. Santos had noticed Sarah's unusual exercise patterns, including swimming sessions that began before dawn and running routes that covered terrain with the systematic thoroughness of someone conducting reconnaissance rather than simple physical fitness training. The relationship between Sarah and her immediate supervisor had developed into professional respect based on consistently superior performance in tasks that most personnel approached with minimal effort. Rodriguez had begun assigning Sarah to coconing maintenance projects that required problem-solving skills and technical knowledge, recognizing her ability to diagnose complex issues and implement solutions that exceeded standard operating procedures. The contrast between Sarah's obvious intelligence and her menial assignment created questions that Rodriguez couldn't ask directly due to military protocol and the administrative restrictions that surrounded her personnel file. The red flag notation prevented discussions about her background or qualifications, but couldn't prevent him from observing capabilities that seemed dramatically inconsistent with her current role in facilities management. Chun had established an informal friendship with Sarah based on shared experiences as women navigating male-dominated military environments, creating opportunities for conversations that revealed Sarah's extensive knowledge of communications, equipment, navigation systems, and tactical planning principles. Chun's background in communications gave her enough technical knowledge to recognize that Sarah's casual comments about electronic systems indicated advanced training in specialized equipment used by elite military units. The daily interactions between Sarah and various base personnel created a network of professional relationships that existed beneath the formal hierarchy, allowing her to maintain awareness of training operations, personnel movements, and administrative decisions that affected base security and operational readiness. Her position in facilities management provided access to information that could be valuable for understanding the broader picture of military activities at Camp Pendleton. The psychological impact of professional exile had been compounded by Sarah's knowledge that her expertise was desperately needed by the very units that remained unaware of her capabilities. Every day brought new evidence of training deficiencies and tactical gaps that she could have addressed through instruction based on combat experience, but her administrative restrictions prevented any participation in official training programs or operational planning activities. The storage facility where Sarah maintained her personal equipment had become a shrine to the professional life she had been forced to abandon, containing diving gear that had been tested in hostile waters, weapons that had been fired in actual combat, and communications equipment that had coordinated successful special operations in multiple theaters of conflict. The monthly visits to inspect and maintain this equipment provided psychological connection to her identity as an elite warrior rather than institutional support staff. The technical publications that Sarah studied during her free time had evolved beyond simple professional development into advanced research that kept her knowledge current with developments in maritime special operations, underwater warfare, and amphibious assault techniques that were being developed by special operations forces worldwide. Her personal library included classified materials that she had purchased through legal civilian channels, representing months of salary invested in maintaining professional competence. The physical training regimen that Sarah maintained in secret had been designed to exceed Navy SEAL fitness standards by significant margins, ensuring that her capabilities remained at levels that would enable immediate return to special operations duty if circumstances ever permitted such reassignment. Her conditioning included underwater endurance training, tactical swimming techniques, and combat fitness protocols that far exceeded the requirements for facilities management personnel. The mental preparation that accompanied Sarah's physical training included tactical scenario planning, mission analysis, and strategic thinking exercises that kept her mind engaged with the complexities of special operations, planning, and execution. These intellectual exercises provided psychological satisfaction, while maintaining the analytical skills that had made her valuable as a Navy SEAL operator in complex operational environments. The base chapel where Sarah attended weekly services had become her sanctuary for meditation and reflection on the moral principles that had guided her decision-making throughout her military career. The quiet environment provided space for processing the psychological challenges of professional displacement, while maintaining the ethical framework that had once made her trusted with life-and-death decisions in combat situations. Rodriguez had begun to suspect that Sarah's background included specialized military training based on her casual familiarity with equipment and procedures that weren't part of standard enlisted education. Her comments about diving operations, tactical communications, and maritime security revealed knowledge that suggested experience with elite military units, but her personnel file restrictions prevented direct inquiry about her previous assignments or specialized qualifications. The relationship between Sarah and the Marines whose quarters she maintained remained professional but distant, creating psychological isolation that was compounded by her inability to participate in the military community that had once provided her primary social connections. The casual camaraderie that characterized military life had been replaced by the institutional invisibility that accompanied her relegation to support duties. Chun had noticed Sarah's unusual knowledge of navigation systems and maritime operations during conversations about base communications equipment, recognizing technical understanding that exceeded the education provided through standard military training programs. Chun's own technical background enabled her to appreciate the depth of Sarah's knowledge while creating curiosity about the source of such specialized education. The administrative machinery that maintained Sarah's current assignment operated with bureaucratic efficiency that prioritized institutional stability over individual capabilities or operational effectiveness. Her personnel file contained all necessary documentation to justify continued assignment to facilities management, making her situation technically correct according to military regulations, even if operationally wasteful from the perspective of maximizing available human resources. The morning when everything changed began like countless others, with Sarah arriving at Building 452 before dawn to begin another day of institutional invisibility and professional waste. The Pacific Ocean stretched beyond the base perimeter, like a liquid reminder of the environment where she had once operated with legendary effectiveness, its waves carrying salt air that triggered memories of successful missions in similar coastal regions around the world. The devastating moment that had derailed Sarah's career and transformed her from elite warrior to anonymous support staff had occurred during a humanitarian rescue operation in Mogadishu, Somalia, where intelligence failures and political pressure had created moral dilemmas that tested every principle she had learned during her training as a Navy SEAL. The mission had begun as a straightforward extraction of American civilians from a medical clinic that was providing humanitarian assistance to Somali refugees displaced by ongoing political violence. Captain David Thompson had been coordinating the operation from the Joint Operations Center aboard the USS Boxer, positioned in international waters off the Somali coast to provide command and control for special operations forces conducting the rescue mission. Thompson's career had been built on successful completion of conventional military operations, but he lacked the operational experience necessary for understanding the complexities that characterize special operations in politically sensitive environments. The intelligence package that had triggered the rescue mission included reports of increasing hostility toward American medical personnel who were treating refugees in a clinic located in Mogadishu's most dangerous district. Multiple sources had confirmed that local warlords were planning to capture American civilians for use as bargaining chips in ongoing negotiations with international humanitarian organizations, creating an immediate threat that required rapid response through special operations capabilities. Sarah's SEAL team had been tasked with conducting an underwater approach to the clinic, using diving techniques to avoid detection by hostile forces that controlled the coastal approaches to Mogadishu. The mission parameters included extraction of 6 American medical personnel and their local interpreters, requiring tactical coordination that drew upon Sarah's expertise in maritime infiltration and urban warfare techniques that she had mastered during previous deployments. Through her diving mask as she approached the coastline, Sarah had conducted the systematic reconnaissance that had saved countless lives during her special operations career. The intelligence briefing had described the medical clinic as an isolated facility with minimal civilian presence, but her direct observation revealed a complex situation that contradicted official assessments provided by intelligence analysts operating hundreds of miles from ground truth. The medical clinic was surrounded by refugee families who had established temporary shelters near the facility, seeking protection and medical assistance for children who had been injured during the ongoing political violence. Sarah counted more than 200 civilian non-combatants in the immediate area, including elderly refugees and dozens of children under the age of 10. Who would be directly endangered by any military operation that involved explosive breaching or sustained gunfire. The tactical situation that Sarah observed from her underwater position indicated that the supposed hostile forces were actually Somali security personnel who had been hired by the medical clinic to provide protection for American humanitarian workers. The men carrying weapons were displaying professional behavior and coordination that suggested legitimate security operations rather than the chaotic aggression characteristic of warlord militias that posed genuine threats to American personnel. Sarah's training had emphasized the importance of accurate intelligence reporting, understanding that ground-level observations often contradicted information that had been filtered through multiple bureaucratic layers before reaching operational commanders. Her encrypted communications with Thompson's command center included detailed descriptions of the civilian presence and evidence that the supposed threat had been mischaracterized by intelligence sources with limited understanding of local conditions. Thompson's response to Sarah's intelligence reports reflected institutional pressure to complete the mission according to predetermined parameters rather than adjusting operational plans based on new information that contradicted original assessments. The rescue operation had been planned with significant input from political officials who were concerned about American casualties and wanted decisive action that would demonstrate military effectiveness in protecting humanitarian workers. The communications between Sarah and Thompson's command center became increasingly tense as she provided additional evidence that the rescue mission was based on flawed intelligence and could result in civilian casualties that would create an international incident damaging to American humanitarian operations throughout the region. Her reports emphasized that the American medical personnel were not in immediate danger and that military intervention could actually increase threats to their safety. Sarah had held her position in the water for more than an hour, conducting detailed observation that confirmed her initial assessment while providing Thompson's staff with comprehensive intelligence about the actual situation at the medical clinic. The American civilians were continuing their humanitarian work without apparent coercion, while the Somali security personnel were maintaining professional protective measures that suggested legitimate employment rather than hostile capture. The order to proceed with the rescue operation had been transmitted through encrypted channels, with Thompson's authority backing a decision that prioritized political considerations over tactical reality. Sarah's continued reports about civilian presence and the absence of genuine threats were dismissed as overthinking, by someone whose job was mission execution rather than strategic analysis of political implications. When the final order came to initiate the rescue operation using explosive breaching techniques that would endanger civilian refugees, Sarah had made the decision that would define the rest of her military career. Her refusal to participate in an operation that would kill innocent civilians was based on the same moral principles that had guided her actions throughout her service as a Navy SEAL. Understanding that American military forces were supposed to protect non-combatants rather than creating additional casualties through poorly planned operations. Sarah's decision to abort the mission and report the situation through alternative command channels had prevented a massacre that would have killed dozens of refugee children, while failing to rescue American personnel who were not actually in danger. Her actions had saved lives and prevented an international incident that would have damaged American humanitarian operations throughout East Africa. But the institutional response had focused on her insubordination rather than the intelligence. Failures that had nearly caused a catastrophic mistake. The court-martial proceedings that followed, Sarah's refusal to participate in the rescue operation, had been conducted under political pressure that emphasized discipline and obedience, rather than tactical judgment and moral courage under combat conditions. The military justice system had processed her case according to regulations that prioritized institutional authority over individual conscience, creating legal proceedings that ignored the substantive issues raised by her intelligence, reporting, and tactical assessment. Thompson's testimony during the court-martial had portrayed Sarah as an unstable operator who had developed emotional attachments to civilian populations that compromised her ability to execute military operations according to orders from superior officers. His account had emphasized her refusal to follow direct commands while minimizing the intelligence discrepancies that she had identified through direct observation and professional analysis. The classified nature of the Somalia operation had prevented introduction of evidence that would have supported Sarah's tactical assessment, while the political sensitivity of the mission had created pressure to resolve her case quickly without extensive examination of the intelligence failures that had nearly caused an international incident. The plea bargain that eventually resolved her case had been presented as institutional mercy rather than acknowledgement of systemic problems. With operational planning and intelligence analysis, Sarah's transfer to Camp Pendleton had been processed as routine personnel action rather than punitive assignment. But everyone involved understood that her future in the Navy had been effectively terminated through administrative restrictions that would prevent her from serving in any capacity that required independent judgment or specialized skills. The red flag notation in her personnel file would follow her throughout any remaining military service, ensuring that her exceptional capabilities would never again be utilized for their intended purposes. The 3 years that followed Sarah's arrival at Camp Pendleton had transformed her from a decorated Navy SEAL into a ghost who haunted the corridors of Building 452, with the kind of methodical precision that reminded anyone paying attention that exceptional training never truly disappears, even when buried beneath institutional indifference. Her days began at 0-4-30 hours with physical conditioning that maintained combat readiness despite having no authorized outlet for such capabilities, continuing with facility maintenance duties that she approached with the same tactical thoroughness once applied to planning special operations in hostile territory. The storage unit off base had become her personal sanctuary and armory, containing diving equipment that bore the scars of actual combat deployments, weapons that had been tested under fire, and communications gear that had coordinated successful missions in multiple theaters of operation. Her monthly visits to inspect and maintain this equipment provided the only connection to her identity as an elite warrior, ensuring that every component remained at operational standards despite having no official purpose beyond personal satisfaction and psychological preparation for opportunities that might never materialize. Rodriguez had developed genuine respect for Sarah's work ethic and problem-solving abilities, recognizing capabilities that extended far beyond routine maintenance duties, but remained constrained by administrative restrictions that prevented him from inquiring about her background or recommending her for positions that might better utilize her obvious talents. The red flag notation in her personnel file created bureaucratic barriers that made direct questions inappropriate, even as his combat experience told him that exceptional competence was being systematically wasted through institutional blindness. The relationship between Sarah and the various base personnel had evolved into professional acknowledgement of her reliability and competence, but the social isolation that accompanied her administrative restrictions prevented the kind of military camaraderie that had once provided her primary community connections. She existed in a parallel world where her expertise remained invisible to those who needed it most, while her daily interactions were limited to superficial exchanges that couldn't address the intellectual and emotional needs of someone trained for complex decision-making under extreme pressure. Chun had become Sarah's closest approximation to a friend at Camp Pendleton, drawn to conversations that revealed Sarah's extensive knowledge of communication systems, navigation equipment, and tactical coordination procedures that exceeded anything taught in standard military training programs. Chun's technical background enabled her to appreciate the depth of Sarah's understanding while creating curiosity about educational experiences that could have produced such specialized knowledge in someone supposedly assigned to basic facilities management. The morning routine that governed Sarah's existence included mental exercises designed to maintain the psychological conditioning required for special operations, ensuring that her decision-making capabilities remained sharp despite being applied only to mundane maintenance tasks and scheduling problems. She conducted tactical scenario analysis during routine cleaning duties, visualizing complex operations and planning solutions to hypothetical problems that kept her mind engaged with the strategic thinking that had made her valuable as a Navy SEAL. The base chapel where Sarah attended weekly services provided spiritual grounding that helped her process the psychological challenges of professional displacement while maintaining faith in principles that transcended institutional politics and bureaucratic convenience. The quiet environment offered space for reflection on moral decisions that had cost her career advancement but preserved her integrity, understanding that some choices carried consequences that extended far beyond immediate personal interests. The Advanced Combat Training Facility remained tantalizingly close to Sarah's work area, its sophisticated equipment and challenging courses representing the professional environment where her skills belonged but could never be officially demonstrated. She had memorized every specification and capability of the facility through careful observation, maintaining current knowledge of training programs and operational procedures that she could have improved through techniques learned during actual combat deployments. The swimming pool at Camp Pendleton's Recreation Center provided Sarah's primary outlet for maintaining the aquatic skills that had made her legendary among Navy SEAL instructors, but her training sessions were conducted during off hours to avoid attracting attention from personnel who might recognize advanced techniques that exceeded standard military swimming instruction. Her underwater endurance and tactical swimming capabilities remained at levels that surpassed most active duty special operations personnel, despite having no official application for such skills. Rodriguez's growing awareness of Sarah's exceptional abilities had led to increasingly complex maintenance assignments that challenged her problem-solving skills and technical knowledge, creating opportunities for her to demonstrate competence that exceeded routine job requirements while remaining within the boundaries of her authorized duties. These projects provided intellectual stimulation and professional satisfaction that partially compensated for the frustration of being excluded from work that matched her actual qualifications. The base security personnel had begun to notice Sarah's unusual patterns of movement and exercise, recognizing behaviors that suggested specialized training in reconnaissance and tactical awareness, rather than simple physical fitness maintenance. Santos, who worked night security, had observed Sarah's pre-dawn swimming sessions and noted techniques that indicated advanced aquatic training far beyond standard military requirements, creating curiosity about background experiences that could have produced such specialized capabilities. The technical publications that Sarah studied during her free time had expanded beyond simple professional development into comprehensive research that kept her knowledge current with developments in maritime special operations, underwater warfare, and amphibious assault techniques being developed by elite military units worldwide. Her personal investment in maintaining professional competence represented thousands of dollars in specialized literature and training materials that she purchased with her own funds despite having no official outlet for applying such knowledge. The psychological discipline required for special operations had been maintained through meditation practices and visualization exercises that Sarah conducted in private, understanding that mental conditioning was as important as physical preparation for maintaining readiness to return to elite military service if circumstances ever permitted such opportunity. These exercises provided psychological stability while preserving cognitive skills that had been honed through combat experience and advanced training programs. The equipment maintenance standards that Sarah applied to base facilities exceeded military specifications by margins that impressed experienced personnel, but her exceptional performance was viewed as dedication to duty rather than evidence of specialized training that qualified her for more challenging assignments. Her attention to detail prevented numerous equipment failures and safety hazards, while demonstrating technical knowledge that could have been valuable in specialized maintenance roles requiring advanced expertise. The social dynamics at Camp Pendleton operated according to informal hierarchies that recognized competence and leadership regardless of official rank or assignment, creating opportunities for Sarah to influence younger personnel through mentorship and example despite being excluded from formal leadership positions. Her interactions with Marines seeking guidance revealed teaching abilities and tactical knowledge that could have been valuable in official instructional roles if administrative restrictions hadn't prevented such assignments. The daily frustration of watching Force Reconnaissance struggle with training problems that she could have solved through techniques learned during actual special operations had been tempered by Sarah's understanding that institutional change required patience and opportunities that might emerge through circumstances beyond her direct control. Her tactical knowledge remained current through observation and study, ensuring that she would be prepared to contribute meaningfully if given the chance to demonstrate her capabilities. The administrative machinery that governed military personnel decisions operated with bureaucratic efficiency that prioritized institutional stability over operational effectiveness, creating systems where exceptional talent could be systematically underutilized while maintaining technical compliance with regulatory requirements. Sarah's case represented a perfect example of how political considerations could override military logic in personnel management decisions that serve no valid organizational purpose. The broader military community at Camp Pendleton remained largely unaware of Sarah's background and capabilities, seeing only the facility's management uniform and routine duties rather than recognizing someone whose operational experience exceeded the collective knowledge of most base personnel. Her invisibility was so complete that she had become a fixture of the physical environment, rather than a human resource with potential value for improving training effectiveness and operational readiness. The hierarchy at Camp Pendleton operated through established channels that filtered information upward, while preventing unconventional ideas or personnel recommendations from reaching decision-makers who might have the authority to reconsider administrative restrictions that served no current operational purpose. Sarah's exceptional capabilities remained hidden beneath layers of bureaucratic assumptions that equated current assignment with actual qualifications and potential contributions. Colonel Robert Hayes commanded the base with professional competence that emphasized regulatory compliance and administrative efficiency over individual personnel development or creative problem-solving that might challenge established procedures. His leadership style reflected career advancement through steady conformity rather than innovation, creating an institutional environment where exceptional individuals were expected to adapt to existing systems rather than contributing ideas that might improve organizational effectiveness. Major Jennifer Collins served as the base personnel officer with responsibility for managing assignments and career development for thousands of military personnel. But the volume of administrative requirements prevented detailed examination of individual cases that might reveal talent being wasted through inappropriate assignments. Collins processed personnel actions according to established procedures that prioritized efficiency over optimization of human resources for maximum organizational benefit. The Force Reconnaissance Unit continued their training programs according to standardized curricula that emphasized conventional amphibious assault techniques rather than the advanced maritime special operations that characterized elite military units operating in complex environments. Morrison's leadership reflected solid competence within established parameters, but lacked the innovative thinking that could have improved training effectiveness through incorporation of advanced techniques developed by personnel with actual combat experience. The training scenarios that Force Reconnaissance practiced included simulated operations that Sarah could have enhanced through tactical insights gained during actual special operations deployments, but her exclusion from training activities prevented any contribution of practical knowledge that could have improved preparation for real-world missions. Her expertise remained locked away while supposedly elite units struggled with problems that had been solved through techniques she had mastered years earlier. The equipment that Force Reconnaissance employed during training exercises included sophisticated gear that Sarah understood better than most of the Marines using it, having operated similar systems under combat conditions that tested their capabilities beyond anything possible in training environments. Her technical knowledge of maintenance procedures, operational limitations, and tactical applications could have improved unit effectiveness while reducing equipment failures that compromised training schedules. The tactical problems that challenged Force Reconnaissance during their most advanced training exercises reflected operational scenarios that Sarah had encountered and successfully resolved during her Navy SEAL deployments, giving her practical experience with solutions that couldn't be taught through classroom instruction or simulated environments. Her combat-tested knowledge represented an invaluable resource that remained completely unavailable to units that could have benefited significantly from her expertise. The morning that would change everything began with the same routine that had defined Sarah's existence for 3 years, arriving at Building 452 before dawn to begin another day of institutional invisibility while maintaining the physical and mental conditioning that kept her prepared for opportunities that seemed increasingly unlikely to materialize. The Pacific Ocean beyond the base perimeter carried the salt scent that triggered memories of successful missions in hostile waters, serving as a constant reminder of the professional identity that had been buried beneath bureaucratic indifference. The emergency alert that shattered the routine tranquility of Camp Pendleton at 0-7-15 hours transformed the base from administrative efficiency into controlled urgency within minutes, as personnel responded to crisis notifications that indicated a developing situation requiring immediate deployment of specialized capabilities that exceeded the base's normal operational requirements. Sarah was inspecting ventilation systems in the upper floors of Building 452 when the facility-wide announcement system crackled with the kind of urgent communications that preceded major military operations. The crisis that emerged from routine intelligence monitoring had developed rapidly from potential threat to immediate emergency, involving American civilians who had been captured by terrorist operatives at a marine research facility located on Catalina Island, approximately 30 miles offshore from the California coast. The hostage situation created tactical challenges that required specialized amphibious assault capabilities, combined with hostage rescue techniques that exceeded the training and experience of conventional military units stationed at Camp Pendleton. Rodriguez found Sarah completing her routine maintenance duties with the same methodical precision that characterized all her work, but the emergency communications crackling through base loudspeakers had created an atmosphere of controlled chaos. That indicated developing operations beyond normal training exercises. The urgency in official announcements suggested that real-world crisis response was being coordinated through multiple agencies, with resources being mobilized for immediate deployment to address threats against American personnel. The details that emerged through official communications channels painted a picture of sophisticated terrorist operation that had captured Dr. Amanda Foster and Professor James Wilson, marine biologists conducting climate research at the Catalina Island Marine Institute, a civilian facility that operated under federal contracts but maintained minimal security appropriate for academic research rather than potential terrorist targets. The hostage-takers had demonstrated tactical competence and strategic planning that indicated professional training rather than opportunistic criminal activity. The tactical situation that confronted military planners involved a fortified position on an island location that could only be approached through amphibious operations, requiring specialized equipment and training that exceeded the capabilities of conventional marine units stationed at Camp Pendleton. The terrorists had chosen their location with strategic intelligence that indicated understanding of American military capabilities and response procedures, creating operational challenges that demanded innovative solutions rather than standard tactical approaches. Force Reconnaissance had been immediately activated for potential deployment to address the crisis, but their initial assessment revealed significant gaps between their conventional amphibious assault training and the specialized requirements for successful hostage rescue operations in a fortified island position. Morrison's team possessed adequate skills for standard beach assault operations, but lacked the advanced maritime infiltration capabilities necessary for covert approach to a defended position without alerting hostage-takers who had threatened to kill American civilians if rescue attempts were detected. The communications intercepts that intelligence personnel had gathered from the terrorist operatives indicated sophisticated planning and professional execution that suggested possible foreign state sponsorship rather than domestic criminal activity, creating political implications that required decisive military response to demonstrate American capability to protect civilians against international terrorism. The pressure for immediate action was intensified by media attention that had already begun focusing on the government's response to threats against American researchers. The specialized equipment required for successful hostage rescue operations in maritime environments exceeded the standard inventory available to Force Reconnaissance, requiring advanced diving gear, underwater navigation systems, and communications. Equipment designed for covert operations rather than conventional amphibious assault missions. The procurement and deployment of such specialized equipment would require time that might not be available given the terrorists' threats against hostage safety. The tactical analysis conducted by Camp Pendleton's operations staff revealed that successful rescue operations would require personnel with advanced maritime special operations training combined with hostage rescue experience that exceeded anything available through conventional military units stationed at the base. The gap between required capabilities and available resources created operational challenges that threatened mission success while potentially endangering the lives of American civilians who were depending on military intervention for their survival. The operations center at Camp Pendleton buzzed with frustrated energy as Morrison's Force Reconnaissance team struggled with tactical problems that exceeded their conventional training parameters, while intelligence updates from Catalina Island painted an increasingly desperate picture of American civilians trapped in a fortified position that could only be approached through water routes, defended by professionally trained terrorists who had demonstrated intimate knowledge of American military response capabilities. Rodriguez found Sarah completing routine maintenance schedules with the same methodical precision that characterized all her work, but the emergency communications echoing throughout the base had created an atmosphere of urgency that indicated real-world operations beyond standard training exercises. The tactical challenges being discussed through official channels involved maritime infiltration techniques and underwater approach methods that required specialized training unavailable to conventional military units stationed at Camp Pendleton. Morrison's initial assessment of the hostage rescue requirements had revealed critical gaps between his unit's amphibious assault capabilities and the covert maritime infiltration necessary for successful approach to a defended island position. Without alerting terrorists who had positioned themselves with clear fields of fire covering all conventional beach landing sites, the tactical situation demanded underwater approach techniques that could deliver assault teams within striking distance of the research facility while maintaining complete stealth throughout the infiltration phase. The specialized diving equipment necessary for extended underwater operations in the challenging currents around Catalina Island exceeded the standard inventory available to Force Reconnaissance, requiring advanced rebreather systems that could sustain underwater operations for extended periods without creating telltale bubble trails that would alert hostile observers to the presence of approaching assault teams. The procurement and delivery of such equipment would consume precious hours while hostages remained in immediate danger. Sarah listened to the tactical discussions echoing through base communications with growing recognition that the operational challenges facing military planners were identical to scenarios she had successfully executed during her Navy SEAL deployments. Understanding that her expertise in maritime special operations represented exactly the capabilities needed to resolve the crisis that was defeating conventional approaches. The irony wasn't lost on her that the skills being desperately sought were literally mopping floors in the same building where frustrated commanders were struggling with problems she had solved repeatedly during actual combat operations. The intelligence briefings that filtered through base communications revealed that the terrorists had chosen their position with sophisticated understanding of American military response capabilities, selecting a location that negated conventional approaches while creating tactical advantages for defenders who had demonstrated professional training in military countermeasures. The research facility's position on elevated terrain surrounded by water provided natural defensive advantages that would require innovative tactical solutions rather than standard assault procedures. Rodriguez's growing awareness of Sarah's exceptional capabilities had reached the point where professional conscience began to override administrative protocol. Recognizing that institutional restrictions might be preventing access to expertise that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure in a situation involving American lives. His combat experience had taught him to value competence over bureaucracy when lives were at stake, but military hierarchy demanded careful consideration of consequences before taking unauthorized action. The communications intercepts from the terrorist position had revealed threats to execute hostages if rescue attempts were detected, creating operational pressure that demanded successful completion of approach and assault phases without alerting defenders who possessed the tactical advantage of fortified positions with clear observation of surrounding waters. The margin for error had been reduced to zero by circumstances that required absolute precision in planning and execution. Chun's monitoring of communications equipment had provided her with detailed awareness of the tactical challenges confronting rescue operations, recognizing through her technical knowledge that the specialized equipment and techniques being discussed exceeded anything available through conventional military channels at Camp Pendleton. Her friendship with Sarah had given her enough insight into Sarah's background to suspect that solutions might be available through unofficial channels, if administrative restrictions could be overcome. The Force Reconnaissance team's frustration with equipment limitations had reached the point where Morrison was considering requesting assistance from Navy SEAL units stationed at Naval Base Coronado. But the time required for such specialized personnel to reach the crisis area and conduct necessary reconnaissance would consume hours that might not be available given the terrorists' threats against hostage safety. The operational timeline demanded immediate action with resources currently available rather than optimal solutions that would arrive too late to prevent civilian casualties. Sarah's decision to approach Rodriguez with unofficial tactical consultation represented the first time in 3 years that she had volunteered information about capabilities that exceeded her assigned duties. Understanding that professional ethics required her to offer expertise that might save American lives regardless of potential consequences for her already damaged military career. The moral courage that had cost her advancement was once again compelling her to place mission success above personal considerations. Rodriguez's recognition that Sarah possessed exactly the specialized knowledge needed to address the tactical challenges facing rescue operations created an immediate conflict between military protocol and operational necessity, forcing him to choose between bureaucratic compliance and potential mission success in a situation where American civilians were depending on military competence for their survival. His decision to authorize unofficial tactical consultation represented acceptance of career risk in service of operational effectiveness. The tactical solution that Sarah proposed drew upon years of experience conducting maritime special operations in hostile environments, combining underwater infiltration techniques with precision timing that could deliver assault teams to their objective without alerting defenders who had positioned themselves to counter conventional approaches. Her analysis incorporated detailed knowledge of ocean currents, underwater terrain, and defensive positioning that enabled tactical solutions unavailable through standard military planning processes. The specialized equipment modifications that Sarah recommended could be accomplished using materials available through base inventory combined with civilian diving gear that could be procured locally, creating tactical capabilities that exceeded standard military specifications through innovative adaptation of existing resources rather than waiting for specialized equipment that might not arrive in time to prevent hostage execution. Her technical knowledge enabled solutions that were both immediately achievable and tactically superior to conventional approaches. Rodriguez's decision to provide Sarah with unofficial access to base communications and tactical planning sessions represented a massive violation of military protocol that could result in court-martial proceedings for both personnel involved. But his combat experience had taught him that successful operations sometimes required accepting administrative risk in service of mission accomplishment. The potential consequences of failing to utilize available expertise outweighed the bureaucratic dangers of unauthorized personnel involvement. The underwater reconnaissance that Sarah conducted using her personal diving equipment provided detailed intelligence about the research facility's defensive positions and approach routes that hadn't been available through conventional surveillance methods, revealing tactical opportunities that could be exploited through specialized infiltration techniques requiring advanced maritime special operations training. Her analysis identified weak points in the terrorist defensive plan that could be exploited through approaches unavailable to conventional assault forces. The tactical briefing that Sarah provided to Morrison's team represented the first time in 3 years that she had been permitted to demonstrate the expertise that had made her legendary among Navy SEAL instructors, revealing knowledge of advanced techniques and equipment applications that immediately enhanced the Force Reconnaissance unit's operational capabilities. Morrison's initial skepticism about accepting tactical advice from facilities management personnel was quickly overcome by recognition of superior knowledge and practical experience. The equipment modifications that Sarah implemented transformed standard diving gear into specialized infiltration systems, capable of supporting extended underwater operations in challenging conditions, demonstrating technical knowledge that exceeded anything available through conventional military training programs. Her ability to improvise tactical solutions using available resources impressed experienced personnel who had struggled with equipment limitations that seemed insurmountable until Sarah's intervention. The assault plan that emerged through Sarah's tactical consultation incorporated advanced maritime infiltration techniques with conventional assault procedures, creating a hybrid approach that maximized the strengths of available personnel while compensating for training limitations through superior planning and equipment optimization. The plan demonstrated how specialized knowledge could enhance conventional capabilities, rather than requiring complete replacement of existing resources. Rodriguez's justification for Sarah's unofficial participation in tactical planning emphasized the emergency nature of the situation and the absence of alternative sources for the specialized knowledge required for mission success, creating administrative cover for decisions that violated standard personnel protocols but served legitimate operational purposes. His documentation of events would provide legal protection for both personnel involved while establishing precedent for utilizing exceptional capabilities regardless of administrative restrictions. The successful infiltration that Sarah led personally demonstrated the tactical expertise that had been hidden beneath 3 years of facilities management duties, revealing capabilities that exceeded those of supposedly elite personnel who had been struggling with problems she resolved through combat-tested techniques and superior planning. Her performance during the rescue operation validated every assessment of her exceptional abilities while exposing the institutional blindness that had wasted valuable resources. The hostage rescue operation succeeded through tactical innovations that Sarah had developed during actual combat deployments, utilizing advanced underwater infiltration techniques, combined with precision assault procedures that neutralized terrorist offenders, while ensuring hostage safety throughout the operation. The mission's success demonstrated the critical importance of recognizing and utilizing exceptional capabilities regardless of administrative complications or institutional resistance to unconventional solutions. Dr. Foster and Professor Wilson were extracted safely from the research facility through escape routes that Sarah had identified during her reconnaissance, their survival representing vindication of the tactical decisions that had prioritized mission effectiveness over bureaucratic compliance. Their testimonies about the professionalism and competence demonstrated during the rescue operation would provide compelling evidence for the administrative review that would inevitably follow the unauthorized participation of restricted personnel. The investigation that began immediately after the successful rescue operation focused initially on determining how specialized tactical capabilities had been available at Camp Pendleton when official assessments had indicated that such expertise was unavailable through conventional military channels. Colonel Hayes recognized that the mission's success had been achieved through methods that violated STANDARD personnel protocols while producing results that exceeded anything possible through authorized procedures. The classified debriefing sessions that followed the rescue operation revealed the extent of Sarah's contributions to mission planning and execution, demonstrating tactical knowledge and operational capabilities that exceeded those of personnel with current authorization for specialized operations. The documentation of her performance provided compelling evidence that administrative restrictions had been preventing optimal utilization of exceptional capabilities available within existing personnel resources. Major Collins conducted comprehensive review of Sarah's personnel file and discovered administrative irregularities in the original court-martial proceedings that had led to her current assignment restrictions. Recognizing that incomplete information and political pressure had resulted in personnel decisions that served no valid organizational purpose while wasting exceptional capabilities. The legal analysis revealed procedural errors that had prevented proper evaluation of Sarah's tactical judgment and moral courage under combat conditions. Morrison's official recommendation for Sarah's immediate reassignment to specialized training duties acknowledged that her tactical expertise exceeded anything available through his Force Reconnaissance unit, emphasizing her contributions to mission success while recommending that her exceptional capabilities be utilized through appropriate assignments rather than wasted through continued assignment to routine facilities management. His assessment documented superior performance that warranted immediate recognition and career advancement. The formal hearing that reviewed Sarah's case and current assignment appropriateness was conducted by a panel of senior officers who recognized that institutional credibility required acknowledgement of administrative errors that had resulted in systematic waste of exceptional capabilities while maintaining technically compliant but operationally destructive personnel policies. The proceedings demonstrated how bureaucratic processes could undermine organizational effectiveness through rigid adherence to regulations that ignored individual competence and potential contributions. Chun's testimony about Sarah's technical knowledge and professional competence provided additional evidence of capabilities that had been systematically underutilized through assignment restrictions that served no valid operational purpose, emphasizing the institutional learning opportunities that had been missed through failure to recognize and develop exceptional talent. Her assessment documented superior performance in routine duties while highlighting potential contributions that remained unrealized through administrative limitations. The rescued hostages provided victim impact statements that emphasized the life-saving consequences of Sarah's exceptional capabilities and willingness to exceed assigned duties during emergency operations, describing her tactical competence and professional dedication in terms that exceeded routine military recognition. Dr. Foster's testimony specifically credited Sarah's planning and leadership with enabling their survival under conditions that had defeated conventional rescue approaches. Rodriguez's documentation of events provided detailed accounting of the administrative decisions and operational circumstances that had led to Sarah's unofficial participation in tactical planning, emphasizing the emergency nature of the situation, while acknowledging violations of personnel protocols that had been necessary for mission success. His testimony demonstrated how exceptional capabilities could be recognized and utilized even within existing administrative frameworks if institutional flexibility was applied appropriately. The panel's findings acknowledged that Sarah's actions during the rescue operation had demonstrated exactly the kind of tactical competence and moral courage that military institutions should cultivate rather than suppress through bureaucratic punishment, recognizing that her exceptional capabilities warranted immediate reassignment to positions requiring advanced maritime special operations expertise. The conclusions emphasized institutional learning opportunities, while recommending policy changes that would prevent similar waste of exceptional talent. Sarah's immediate promotion to gunnery sergeant with retroactive effective date acknowledged that her capabilities and performance had warranted advancement that had been prevented by administrative restrictions based on incomplete personnel file information, restoring career progression that should have occurred through normal advancement. Procedures. The promotion recognized exceptional competence, while correcting institutional errors that had damaged both individual careers and organizational effectiveness. The Advanced Maritime Operations Training Center that was established at Camp Pendleton, under Sarah's supervision, provided institutional framework for utilizing her exceptional capabilities, while preventing similar waste of specialized talent through improved personnel identification and development procedures. Her assignment as senior instructor represented optimal utilization of combat-tested expertise while contributing to institutional effectiveness through training programs that enhanced overall military capabilities. The policy changes implemented following Sarah's case included enhanced oversight of personnel, assignment decisions, and mandatory review of cases where exceptional capabilities were being underutilized through administrative restrictions, creating institutional safeguards against bureaucratic processes that wasted taxpayer investment in advanced military training while demoralizing exceptional personnel. The reforms demonstrated organizational learning that extended beyond individual cases to address systemic problems with personnel management. 6 months after her vindication and reassignment, Gunnery Sergeant Sarah Martinez stood before a formation of newly graduated Maritime Special Operations candidates at the Advanced Maritime Operations Training Center, watching the next generation of elite warriors who would benefit from institutional changes that her case had precipitated. The morning Pacific breeze carried salt air that reminded her of successful missions in hostile waters, but more importantly, it represented the professional redemption that had transformed institutional failure into organizational learning. The faces before her represented diverse backgrounds and experiences, united by shared commitment to mastering maritime special operations, techniques that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure in environments where American lives depended on exceptional competence and unwavering moral courage. Among the candidates stood several personnel whose presence reflected policy changes that had removed barriers to advanced training based on bureaucratic assumptions rather than demonstrated capabilities. The training facility that surrounded them featured state-of-the-art equipment and challenging courses that incorporated lessons learned from Sarah's combat experience and the institutional failures that had nearly destroyed her career, creating educational opportunities that combined theoretical knowledge with practical applications, tested under actual combat conditions. The facility represented institutional commitment to excellence that transcended political considerations and administrative convenience. Lieutenant Maria Gonzalez, one of the candidates who had specifically requested assignment to Sarah's training program, listened with the focused attention of someone who understood that exceptional opportunities required exceptional preparation and dedication. Gonzalez's academic background included engineering education that complemented her military training, creating intellectual capabilities that Sarah recognized as similar to her own combination of technical knowledge and practical experience. The speech that Sarah delivered to the graduating class emphasized principles that had guided her throughout her military career, understanding that technical competence must be combined with moral courage to create the kind of military leaders that American citizens deserved and expected from their armed forces. Her words carried the authority of someone who had sacrificed career advancement to preserve ethical principles, demonstrating that true leadership sometimes required accepting immediate costs in service of long-term institutional integrity. Master Sergeant Morrison, who now served as Sarah's deputy in the expanded training program, had become one of her strongest advocates after witnessing her instructional capabilities and tactical expertise that exceeded anything he had encountered during 15 years of specialized military service. His initial skepticism about accepting guidance from someone supposedly restricted to facilities management had been replaced by professional respect that acknowledged superior knowledge and practical experience. Captain Thompson, whose poor judgment in Somalia had initiated this sequence of events that nearly destroyed Sarah's career, had requested assignment to work under her supervision as part of institutional acknowledgement that her tactical assessment had been correct while his operational planning had been flawed. His presence in her chain of command represented complete reversal of the institutional dynamics that had once punished moral courage while rewarding bureaucratic compliance. The international recognition of Sarah's capabilities had resulted in invitations to participate in multinational training exercises and professional conferences where her expertise contributed to allied military cooperation and shared learning. about maritime special operations applications in complex operational environments. Her reputation extended beyond domestic military circles to include international special operations communities that valued combat-tested expertise over administrative credentials. The memorial wall in Sarah's office displayed photographs and letters from personnel whose lives had been saved through maritime special operations techniques learned in her training programs, representing the ultimate measure of success for someone whose skills had been developed through combat experience and refined through institutional struggle that had tested every aspect of her character and professional dedication. The institutional changes that had resulted from Sarah's case continued to evolve as Camp Pendleton implemented comprehensive reforms in personnel, management, and capability utilization that prevented exceptional talent from being wasted through bureaucratic assumptions and administrative convenience. Her legacy would be measured not only through personal achievement, but through systemic improvements that ensured future generations of military personnel would be recognized and utilized according to their actual capabilities rather than bureaucratic classifications. The woman who had been relegated to cleaning barracks while others trained with techniques she had mastered through actual combat had become the instructor who prepared the military's most skilled maritime special operations personnel for missions where lives depended on exceptional competence, moral courage, and unwavering commitment to protecting American lives regardless of personal cost. Her journey from institutional exile to professional leadership demonstrated that exceptional individuals could create lasting change through persistence, skill, and dedication to principles that transcended political considerations and bureaucratic convenience. The success of Dr. Foster and Professor Wilson's rescue had created professional relationships that extended beyond military circles, with both rescued civilians becoming advocates for military training programs that emphasized tactical innovation and moral courage over rigid adherence to bureaucratic protocols. Their testimonials provided civilian perspective on military competence that enhanced public understanding of the dedication and skill represented by elite military personnel. The training programs that Sarah developed incorporated lessons learned from her combat experience with institutional insights gained through 3 years of bureaucratic struggle, creating educational curricula that prepared military personnel for operational success while teaching them to navigate institutional challenges that could otherwise waste exceptional capabilities. Her approach emphasized both technical competence and ethical leadership as essential components of military effectiveness. The evening training sessions that Sarah conducted at the Maritime Operations Center attracted personnel from throughout Camp Pendleton, who sought to learn advanced techniques from someone whose expertise had been validated through actual combat experience and successful resolution of real-world crises. These voluntary educational opportunities provided professional development that enhanced overall base capabilities while demonstrating the value of recognizing and utilizing exceptional talent regardless of administrative complications. The legacy that Sarah was building extended beyond individual career redemption to encompass institutional transformation that would benefit generations of military personnel who possessed exceptional capabilities but might otherwise be overlooked through bureaucratic processes that valued administrative convenience over operational effectiveness. Her story had become a catalyst for organizational change that improved both individual opportunities and collective military capabilities. 2 years after her vindication and the establishment of the Advanced Maritime Operations Training Center, Gunnery Sergeant Sarah Martinez received an encrypted communication that would bring her story full circle in the most profound way imaginable. The message originated from the Pentagon Special Operations Command, bearing the electronic signature of Captain David Thompson, the same officer whose flawed judgment in Somalia had derailed her career and whose institutional protection had kept her buried in facilities management for 3 devastating years of professional exile. "Sarah, this is Captain Thompson calling from SOCOM headquarters." His voice carried a humility that she had never heard during their previous interactions, transmitted through secure channels that indicated the highest levels of military classification. "I am requesting your professional expertise on a matter of critical national security importance that requires the kind of tactical judgment and moral courage that you demonstrated during the Mogadishu operation." Thompson explained that he had been tasked with developing new operational protocols for maritime special operations in politically sensitive environments where civilian populations created moral and tactical complexities similar to those Sarah had navigated during that controversial humanitarian mission. The military establishment had finally recognized that her decision-making during that mission represented exactly the kind of ethical framework they needed to institutionalize throughout special operations forces worldwide. "Sarah, your refusal to participate in the Somalia operation has become a cornerstone case study in military ethics programs throughout the special operations community." Thompson continued, his admission representing a complete reversal of his previous position regarding her tactical assessment and moral courage. "We need officers who understand that the most difficult decisions often involve knowing when not to pull the trigger, when not to proceed with operations that might achieve tactical objectives while creating strategic disasters." The irony of the situation struck Sarah with the force of complete vindication as she listened to Thompson's request for her expertise. The same tactical judgment that had nearly destroyed her career was now being actively sought by the institution that had punished her for demonstrating moral courage under impossible circumstances. Her vindication extended beyond personal career rehabilitation to encompass institutional acknowledgement that ethical leadership sometimes required challenging authority structures, even when such challenges carried significant personal costs. Thompson's current assignment involved coordinating with international allies to develop rules of engagement for special operations in urban environments where terrorist organizations deliberately positioned themselves among civilian populations to complicate military responses. The lessons learned from Sarah's case had revealed how traditional command structures could fail when faced with rapidly evolving situations that required immediate moral judgments rather than bureaucratic consultation with higher authorities who lacked ground-level understanding of tactical realities. "Captain Thompson, I appreciate the recognition of my tactical assessment during the Somalia operation," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the professional composure that had sustained her through years of institutional struggle while maintaining her commitment to ethical military service. "I will contribute to doctrine development that helps special operations personnel make sound moral decisions under combat conditions, but I have conditions that reflect lessons learned from my own experience with institutional resistance to ethical leadership." Sarah's conditions for participating in the Doctrine Development Project emphasized the importance of protecting subordinate personnel who demonstrated moral courage in challenging situations, understanding that institutional credibility required systems that supported ethical decision-making, rather than punishing individuals who identified problems with operational planning or intelligence assessments. Her requirements included provisions for independent review of controversial decisions and protection against retaliation for personnel who raised legitimate concerns about mission parameters. The conversation between Sarah and Thompson concluded with his acceptance of her conditions and his personal acknowledgement that her case had forced the military to examine how institutional pride could interfere with mission effectiveness and ethical decision-making under combat conditions. Her experience had become more than personal vindication. It had catalyzed systematic changes that would benefit generations of special operations personnel facing similar moral challenges in complex operational environments. Thompson's final comment before ending the secure communication carried the weight of institutional transformation that extended far beyond individual career rehabilitation. "Sarah, Your case taught us that sometimes the most qualified person to lead is the one who has demonstrated the courage to say no when everyone else is saying yes. Your willingness to accept career destruction, rather than participate in operations that violated your moral principles, makes you exactly the kind of leader we need to guide the next generation of Special Operations personnel. The Advanced Maritime Operations Training Center had evolved into the premier facility for specialized amphibious warfare instruction, attracting personnel from throughout the military establishment who sought to learn advanced techniques from instructors whose expertise had been validated through actual combat experience and successful resolution of real-world crises. Sarah's reputation as an educator had spread throughout the special operations community, creating demand for her training programs that exceeded the facility's capacity, while demonstrating the value of recognizing and developing exceptional talent. Lieutenant Maria Gonzalez had emerged as Sarah's most promising protege, demonstrating intellectual capabilities and moral courage that reminded Sarah of her own development as a young special operations officer. Gonzalez's academic background in marine engineering provided technical foundations that accelerated her understanding of underwater operations and amphibious assault principles, while her natural leadership abilities suggested potential for advancing to senior positions where her influence could extend throughout the special operations community. The training facility itself had become a model for military education that combined theoretical instruction with practical application under conditions that simulated the stress and complexity of actual combat operations. Sarah's curriculum integrated technical competence with ethical decision-making, understanding that special operations personnel required both exceptional skills and unwavering moral foundations to succeed in environments where individual decisions could have strategic consequences for American interests worldwide. Master Sergeant Morrison continued serving as Sarah's deputy commander with professional satisfaction that came from contributing to institutional excellence rather than merely maintaining bureaucratic compliance. His transformation from skeptical Force Reconnaissance leader to dedicated advocate for innovative training methods demonstrated how exceptional leadership could influence organizational culture while improving collective capabilities. Morrison's experience working under Sarah's command had taught him that true military effectiveness required continuous learning and adaptation rather than rigid adherence to established procedures. The international recognition of the training center's effectiveness had resulted in exchange programs with allied military forces, who sent their most promising special operations candidates to learn advanced maritime techniques from American instructors whose combat experience and educational innovations had created capabilities that exceeded anything available through conventional military training programs. These international partnerships enhanced American military diplomacy, while providing opportunities for cultural exchange that strengthened allied cooperation in special operations activities. Dr. Amanda Foster had become a civilian advocate for military training programs that emphasized tactical innovation and moral courage, using her position as a respected marine biologist to promote public understanding of the dedication and professionalism that characterized elite military personnel. Her testimony about the competence and ethical behavior demonstrated during her rescue had contributed to congressional funding for expanded special operations training facilities and improved personnel development programs throughout the military establishment. Professor James Wilson had similarly leveraged his academic credentials to support military education initiatives that bridged the gap between civilian research institutions and military operational requirements, creating collaborative relationships that enhanced both academic research and military effectiveness. His experience as a rescued hostage had provided him with unique insights into military professionalism that he shared through lectures and publications that improved public appreciation for military service and sacrifice. The policy changes that had resulted from Sarah's case had been implemented throughout the military establishment, creating institutional safeguards against bureaucratic processes that could waste exceptional talent while protecting personnel who demonstrated moral courage in challenging situations. These reforms included mandatory review procedures for administrative punishments, enhanced oversight of personnel assignment decisions, and protection against retaliation for individuals who reported concerns about operational planning or intelligence assessments. Captain Hayes, who had succeeded Colonel Hayes as base commander at Camp Pendleton, had implemented comprehensive reforms in personnel management that ensured exceptional capabilities were recognized and utilized regardless of administrative complications or institutional resistance to unconventional approaches. His leadership style emphasized individual development and organizational learning over bureaucratic compliance, creating an environment where innovation and moral courage were valued alongside technical competence and professional dedication. The memorial garden that had been established adjacent to the training center honored military personnel whose moral courage had contributed to institutional improvement, recognizing that ethical leadership sometimes required accepting personal sacrifice in service of broader principles that transcended individual career advancement. Sarah's name appeared prominently among those recognized for contributions that extended beyond operational success to encompass institutional transformation that benefited countless military personnel and enhanced overall organizational effectiveness. The research partnerships that Sarah had developed with civilian academic institutions had created collaborative programs that enhanced military training through incorporation of cutting-edge scientific research and technological innovation. These partnerships provided military personnel with access to advanced research facilities and expertise, while offering civilian researchers opportunities to contribute to national security through practical applications of their academic work. The annual Symposium on Military Ethics and Tactical Decision-Making that the training center hosted had become a premier forum for discussing the intersection of moral courage and operational effectiveness, attracting participants from throughout the military establishment, academic institutions, and policy-making organizations. Sarah's keynote presentations at these events provided compelling examples of how individual integrity could catalyze institutional change while maintaining operational excellence under the most challenging circumstances. The book that Sarah had authored about her experiences and the lessons learned from institutional struggle had become required reading in military leadership courses throughout the armed forces, providing future officers with insights into the challenges and opportunities that came with accepting responsibility for difficult decisions under combat conditions. Her writing emphasized that military effectiveness required both technical competence and ethical foundations that could withstand the pressures and temptations that accompanied positions of authority and responsibility. The mentorship program that Sarah had established connected experienced special operations personnel with younger military members who showed potential for advanced training and leadership development, creating informal networks that supported career development while maintaining the institutional knowledge and cultural values that defined elite military units. These mentoring relationships provided guidance and support that helped promising personnel navigate the challenges of military career advancement while maintaining their commitment to ethical service. The legislative testimony that Sarah had provided to congressional committees responsible for military oversight had contributed to policy reforms that improved personnel management systems throughout the armed forces, ensuring that exceptional capabilities were recognized and developed rather than wasted through bureaucratic indifference or institutional resistance to change. Her expertise as both a combat veteran and an institutional reformer provided lawmakers with practical insights into the challenges facing military personnel management in an era of increasingly complex operational requirements. The documentary film that had been produced about Sarah's case and its impact on military culture had reached audiences throughout American society, providing civilian citizens with understanding of the dedication and professionalism that characterized military service while highlighting the importance of supporting ethical leadership within military institutions. The film's impact extended beyond entertainment to encompass education about military values and the importance of maintaining high standards of conduct even under the most difficult circumstances. The scholarship program that had been established in Sarah's name provided educational opportunities for military personnel seeking to develop expertise in maritime special operations, ensuring that future generations of special operations personnel would have access to advanced training regardless of their economic circumstances or bureaucratic obstacles that might otherwise prevent recognition of exceptional potential. These scholarships represented institutional commitment to developing talent based on merit rather than administrative convenience or political considerations. The training exchanges that Sarah coordinated with international special operations forces had created collaborative relationships that enhanced American military capabilities while strengthening allied cooperation in addressing shared security challenges. These programs provided American personnel with exposure to different tactical approaches and cultural perspectives while demonstrating American commitment to international partnership in maintaining global security and stability. The innovation laboratory that had been established within the training center provided opportunities for developing new techniques and equipment that could enhance special operations effectiveness while reducing risks to personnel conducting dangerous missions in hostile environments. Sarah's leadership of this research effort combined her combat experience with academic collaboration to produce practical innovations that improved both training effectiveness and operational success. Rates. The alumni network that had developed among personnel trained at Sarah's facility had become an informal but influential force for institutional improvement throughout the special operations community, carrying forward the principles of ethical leadership and tactical innovation that characterize the training center's approach to military education. These graduates occupied increasingly senior positions throughout the military establishment, where their influence contributed to continued organizational development and cultural improvement. The consulting work that Sarah conducted with defense contractors and technology companies had contributed to development of advanced equipment and systems that enhanced military capabilities while reflecting the practical insights that could only come from actual combat experience and successful resolution of real-world operational challenges. Her expertise provided industry partners with understanding of user requirements that resulted in more effective and reliable military equipment. The peaceful morning at Camp Pendleton carried the salt breeze from the Pacific Ocean that had once reminded Sarah of professional exile and wasted potential, but now represented the professional fulfillment that came from utilizing exceptional capabilities in service of institutional excellence and national security. The transformation of her circumstances from facilities management to senior leadership demonstrated that persistence and moral courage could overcome even the most entrenched bureaucratic resistance to change. Lieutenant Gonzalez approached Sarah's office carrying the morning intelligence briefing that included updates on international security situations that might require special operations responses, understanding that her role as Sarah's executive assistant provided unique opportunities to learn about strategic planning and operational coordination that would prepare her for future leadership responsibilities. The professional relationship between mentor and protege represented the kind of knowledge transfer that ensured institutional continuity while fostering individual development. The training schedule for the coming week included advanced underwater operations that would challenge even experienced special operations personnel. But Sarah's instructional methods had proven capable of preparing students for success in the most demanding operational environments through combination of theoretical education, practical application, and psychological preparation that addressed all aspects of special operations effectiveness. Her curriculum reflected lessons learned through combat experience that could not be taught through classroom instruction alone. The communication from Thompson requesting her participation in doctrine development represented the final validation of tactical judgment and moral courage that had cost her years of professional advancement, while serving broader principles of ethical military service. The invitation to contribute to institutional policy demonstrated that her sacrifice had produced lasting benefits for the military establishment and the American citizens who depended on military competence and integrity for their security and freedom. The legacy that Sarah had built through years of struggle and eventual vindication extended far beyond individual career rehabilitation to encompass institutional transformation that would benefit generations of military personnel while enhancing American military effectiveness in an increasingly complex and challenging global security environment. Her story demonstrated that exceptional individuals could create lasting change through persistence, competence, and unwavering commitment to principles that transcended personal advancement or institutional convenience. The woman who had been relegated to cleaning barracks while possessing capabilities that exceeded those of supposedly elite personnel had become the leader whose influence shaped military culture and operational effectiveness throughout the special operations community. Her journey from institutional invisibility to professional recognition proved that talent and moral courage could overcome even the most entrenched bureaucratic resistance while creating positive change that extended far beyond individual circumstances to benefit entire organizations and the nation they served. 5 years later, the Advanced Maritime Operations Training Center had become the most sought-after assignment in the special operations community, with personnel from every branch of the military competing for positions that would allow them to learn from Sarah Martinez, whose name had become synonymous with tactical excellence and moral leadership throughout the defense establishment. The facility's reputation extended far beyond American military circles to include international special operations forces who regularly sent their most promising candidates to study advanced techniques that had been refined through actual combat experience and institutional innovation. The morning briefing in Sarah's office overlooked the Pacific coastline, where her students conducted daily training exercises that pushed the boundaries of human endurance, while teaching lessons that went far beyond technical proficiency to encompass the kind of character development that created leaders capable of making sound decisions under impossible circumstances. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Martinez, having been promoted again in recognition of her contributions to military education and doctrine development, reviewed intelligence reports that included requests for specialized training from military units worldwide who recognized the value of instruction based on proven combat effectiveness rather than theoretical knowledge. Maria Gonzalez, now Captain Gonzalez and serving as Sarah's deputy commander, had developed into exactly the kind of leader that the military needed for addressing the complex security challenges of the modern world. Her combination of technical expertise and ethical foundation reflected the educational philosophy that Sarah had pioneered, demonstrating how proper mentorship and institutional support could develop exceptional capabilities while maintaining the moral principles that distinguished professional military service from mere technical competence in the application of violence. The research library that occupied an entire wing of the training center contained the most comprehensive collection of maritime special operations literature in the world, including classified materials that Sarah had helped develop through her work with Pentagon doctrine committees and international military cooperation initiatives. Students and instructors used these resources to study not only technical procedures, but also the ethical frameworks that guided decision-making in situations where military effectiveness had to be balanced against moral considerations and strategic consequences. The Simulation Center used cutting-edge technology to recreate the environmental conditions and psychological pressures that characterized actual special operations missions, allowing students to experience realistic training scenarios without the risks associated with live combat operations. Sarah's input had been crucial in developing training programs that accurately replicated the stress and complexity of real-world situations while maintaining safety standards that protected personnel during the learning process. Thompson's quarterly visits to the training center had evolved from professional obligation into genuine friendship based on mutual respect and shared commitment to improving military effectiveness through ethical leadership and institutional learning. His transformation from the officer who had nearly destroyed Sarah's career into one of her strongest advocates demonstrated how individual growth and institutional change could occur simultaneously when supported by leaders who valued truth over convenience and competence over political considerations. The graduation ceremonies that marked the completion of advanced training programs had become significant events within the military community, attended by senior officials who recognized the importance of the education being provided and the quality of the personnel being developed. Sarah's speeches during these ceremonies emphasized themes that had guided her throughout her career, understanding that military excellence required both exceptional skill and unwavering commitment to principles that transcended personal advancement or institutional politics. The documentary series that had been produced about the training center and its impact on military culture had reached audiences throughout American society and beyond, providing civilian populations with insights into military professionalism, while demonstrating the dedication and sacrifice that characterized military service at the highest levels. The programs had contributed to improved public understanding of military values while highlighting the importance of supporting institutions that developed ethical leadership and operational excellence. International military delegations regularly visited the training center to observe educational methods and discuss cooperative initiatives that could enhance global security through shared learning and collaborative development of special operations capabilities. Sarah's role in these diplomatic activities reflected her status as one of the military's most respected leaders while contributing to American influence in international security affairs through demonstration of professional competence and ethical leadership. The annual symposium on military ethics and operational effectiveness that the training center hosted had become the premier forum for discussing challenges facing modern military forces, attracting participants from academic institutions, policy organizations, and military establishments worldwide. Sarah's leadership of these conferences provided platforms for addressing complex issues, while fostering collaborative relationships that enhanced both theoretical understanding and practical applications of ethical military leadership. The evening when Sarah received notification of her selection for promotion to Brigadier General marked the culmination of a journey that had taken her from institutional exile to the highest levels of military leadership, demonstrating that persistence and moral courage could overcome even the most entrenched bureaucratic resistance while creating positive change that extended far beyond individual circumstances. The promotion represented not only personal achievement, but also institutional recognition of the value of ethical leadership and innovative thinking in military service. The farewell dinner that Thompson hosted in Washington provided opportunity for reflection on the transformation that had occurred in both their careers and their relationship, acknowledging how individual growth and institutional learning could create positive outcomes even from the most difficult circumstances. Their conversation that evening focused on lessons learned and challenges ahead, understanding that continued progress required ongoing commitment to principles that had guided their professional development and institutional contributions. The new assignment that awaited Sarah at the Pentagon would provide opportunities to influence military policy and institutional development at the highest levels, ensuring that lessons learned through her experience and the success of her training programs would be incorporated into organizational structures that affected the entire military establishment. Her role in strategic planning and personnel development would enable continued advocacy for ethical leadership and innovative approaches to military education and operational effectiveness. The legacy that Sarah had created through years of struggle and eventual triumph would continue through the personnel she had trained and mentored, who now occupied positions throughout the military establishment where their influence contributed to continued organizational improvement and cultural development. The principles and practices that she had pioneered would persist through institutional memory and individual commitment to excellence that transcended personal advancement or bureaucratic convenience. The woman who had once mopped floors while possessing capabilities that exceeded those of elite military units had become a general whose influence shaped military culture and operational effectiveness throughout the defense establishment, proving that exceptional talent combined with moral courage could create lasting institutional change while serving the highest ideals of military service and national defense. Her story demonstrated that individual persistence and ethical commitment could overcome systemic obstacles while contributing to organizational excellence that benefited not only military personnel but also the citizens who depended on military competence and integrity for their security and freedom. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.